The old mailbox at the end of Cedar Lane had not received a letter in over 30 years. Its faded blue paint had peeled away, leaving rust beneath the surface, yet every morning it stood waiting as if time itself had forgotten to tell it that no one was coming. Ethan Walker noticed it on the first day he moved into the small white cottage across the road. After years of living in noisy Chicago apartments, the quiet valley of Ashbrook felt almost unreal. The wind carried the scent of pine trees, distant rivers, and fresh rain. Even the birds seemed to sing more slowly here. His neighbors rarely spoke beyond a friendly wave. They smiled kindly but never mentioned the abandoned mailbox. Ethan assumed it was simply another forgotten piece of countryside history. One chilly October morning, while walking with a cup of coffee in his hand, he stopped beside it. Something white rested inside. Curious, he opened the tiny metal door. A single envelope. No stamp. No return address. Only 3 words written in elegant black ink. For Ethan Walker. His heartbeat slowed. He had told almost no one he was moving here. He looked around. The road was empty. A golden leaf drifted across the pavement before disappearing into the grass. He carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single handwritten sentence. Tomorrow, don't take the Northern Bridge. Nothing else. No signature. He laughed quietly. Someone in town probably enjoyed strange jokes. The next morning he almost forgot about the letter until he started driving toward the hardware store. The shortest route crossed the Northern Bridge over Mill Creek. Without thinking, he remembered the note. For no reason he could explain, he chose the longer southern road instead. 20 minutes later, emergency sirens echoed through the valley. By afternoon everyone in town was talking about the accident. An old delivery truck had lost control on the Northern Bridge, sending part of the wooden railing into the creek below. Several cars were damaged. Ethan sat silently on his porch that evening, the untouched letter resting beside him. The mailbox stood alone across the road, perfectly still beneath the orange sunset. Just before darkness settled over Ashbrook, he noticed something impossible. The little metal door slowly opened by itself. Then, as though an unseen hand had gently placed it there, another envelope appeared. The morning fog rolled gently across Ashbrook, wrapping the quiet streets in a pale silver blanket. Ethan barely slept after discovering the second envelope. Every sound outside his bedroom window seemed louder than usual, the rustling leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, even the soft tapping of tree branches against the roof. At sunrise, he crossed the empty road. The mailbox stood exactly where it always had, worn by decades of rain and snow. Inside rested the envelope he had seen the night before. His name appeared again in the same graceful handwriting. He opened it carefully. Do not tell anyone about these letters. The message was shorter than the first, but somehow heavier. Ethan folded the paper and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Later that afternoon, he visited the small grocery store near the town square. The owner, Martha, greeted him with a warm smile and asked how he was settling into Ashbrook. He almost mentioned the strange mailbox. The words reached the tip of his tongue. Then he remembered the note. Instead, he simply smiled. It's a peaceful place, he said. Martha nodded. It has always been peaceful, though sometimes it keeps its secrets. Her answer caught him off guard. What kind of secrets? She laughed softly. The kind every old town has. Nothing more. That evening, rain began to fall. The drops tapped gently against the cottage windows while Ethan reread both letters. Someone knew his name. Someone knew where he would drive. And now someone seemed to know exactly what he was about to say. Just after midnight, the rain suddenly stopped. The silence felt almost unnatural. Unable to ignore his curiosity, Ethan stepped onto the porch. Moonlight covered the road like polished glass. Across the street, the mailbox door was already open. He hadn't seen anyone approach it. He walked over slowly, his footsteps echoing in the still night. Another envelope waited inside. His hands trembled slightly as he unfolded the paper. Tomorrow at 3:17 p.m., go to the old train station. Stand beside the broken clock. Say nothing. Leave after exactly 5 minutes. No explanation. No signature. Only instructions. The next day, Ethan checked his watch every few minutes. At 3:17 sharp, he stood beside the cracked station clock, just as the letter instructed. The abandoned platform was silent except for the whisper of the wind. 4 minutes passed. Nothing happened. As he prepared to leave, a slow-moving freight train rolled by on tracks that everyone in town insisted had been abandoned years ago. One passenger, sitting alone by a window, looked directly at Ethan. The man slowly smiled and lifted an envelope against the glass. The train disappeared around the bend as quietly as it had arrived, leaving only the fading rumble of steel against steel. Ethan stood frozen on the empty platform, his eyes fixed on the tracks long after the last freight car vanished from sight. The passenger had never looked surprised to see him. It was as though they had been expecting each other. Ethan glanced at his watch. Exactly 5 minutes had passed. Remembering the instructions, he turned and walked away without speaking a single word. By the time he reached his cottage, dusk had settled over Ashbrook. The familiar blue mailbox waited across the road, its tiny metal door slightly open. Another envelope. He crossed the street almost automatically. Inside, the letter contained only one sentence. You did well. Never chase the train. He frowned. How had whoever wrote these letters known he had nearly run after it? The thought lingered throughout the evening. Unable to stop thinking about the mysterious passenger, Ethan searched through old newspapers at the town library the next morning. Most articles were ordinary: community fairs, school events, local elections, but one yellowed clipping caught his attention. 29 years earlier, a freight train had passed through Ashbrook one final time before the railway officially closed. The article included a faded black and white photograph. Ethan's breath caught. There, sitting beside a window in the third car, was the same smiling man he had seen the day before. The newspaper was dated nearly 3 decades ago. His hands grew cold. He carried the clipping to the librarian. Do you know who this man is? The elderly woman adjusted her glasses and studied the picture for several seconds. I don't, she admitted. Strange. I've never noticed him before. You've never noticed him? I've shelved this newspaper hundreds of times. She looked genuinely puzzled. It almost feels like he wasn't there before. Ethan carefully returned the clipping. As he walked home, the quiet streets seemed different. Not threatening. Watching. That night, a thick fog rolled through the valley, swallowing houses, fences, and trees until only faint outlines remained. Near midnight, Ethan heard 3 soft knocks at his front door. Knock. 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 He opened it immediately. No one. Only drifting fog. Then he noticed something on the wooden porch. An envelope. Not inside the mailbox this time. It was damp from the mist, but his name remained perfectly clear. He unfolded the paper beneath the porch light. Tomorrow, someone will finally ask about the letters. A pause. Then one final line. Whatever happens, answer with only this: I haven't received anything. The envelope remained on Ethan's kitchen table long after sunrise. He read its message over and over, wondering who could possibly know about the letters. Until now, no one had asked a single question. In fact, most people in Ashbrook seemed careful not to ask many questions at all. The morning passed quietly. He repaired a loose fence behind the cottage, brewed fresh coffee, and tried to convince himself that the prediction would prove wrong. Shortly after noon, someone knocked on his front door. Standing outside was Sheriff Daniel Brooks, a tall man with silver hair and calm blue eyes. His smile was friendly, but his expression carried the quiet confidence of someone who noticed everything. Afternoon, the sheriff said. Mind if I come in for a minute? Ethan welcomed him inside. They talked about the town, the weather, and the old cottage. The conversation felt completely ordinary. Then the sheriff set his coffee cup down. I've been meaning to ask you something. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. When you moved here, the sheriff said slowly, did you happen to find anything unusual? The room suddenly felt smaller. Ethan remembered every word from the letter. He forced himself to remain calm. I haven't received anything. The sheriff held his gaze for several seconds. Then, to Ethan's surprise, he smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Without another question, he stood, thanked Ethan for the coffee, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he paused. Some things find people for a reason, he said quietly. Don't try to find them first. The door closed behind him. Ethan hurried to the window. The sheriff climbed into his truck and drove away without looking back. That evening, the mailbox waited beneath a sky painted with shades of gold and crimson. Another envelope rested inside. His hands no longer trembled as he opened it. He believes you. Below that was another sentence. Tomorrow, go to the church on the hill before sunrise. Enter through the side door. Sit in the last pew until the first bell rings. Before dawn, Ethan followed the narrow path leading to the old stone church. The building stood alone above a valley, surrounded by ancient oak trees that whispered in the cool morning breeze. The side door opened with a soft creak. Inside, dozens of wooden pews stretched toward the altar. No candles burned. No voices echoed. Only silence. Ethan sat in the last pew. Minutes passed. The first church bell rang through the empty sanctuary. At that exact moment, another bell answered from somewhere beneath the floor. A hidden door behind the altar slowly began to open. The sound from beneath the church was deeper than the bell above, as though it had traveled through layers of stone before reaching the sanctuary. Ethan remained seated, remembering how every letter had rewarded patience and punished curiosity. The hidden door behind the altar opened only halfway. No one emerged. A narrow staircase disappeared into darkness below. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then footsteps echoed upward. Slow. Measured. A woman appeared at the top of the stairs. She looked to be in her 70s, wearing a gray coat despite the warmth of the morning. Her silver hair was neatly tied back, and her eyes carried the calm certainty of someone who had waited a lifetime. She looked directly at Ethan. You came on time, she said. He hesitated before answering. I received a letter. The woman smiled gently, as if she had expected him to break the rule this once. I know. She walked toward the last pew and sat beside him. My name is Eleanor. Ethan searched her face, certain they had never met. Do you know who keeps sending the letters? I know why they are sent, she replied. The person who writes them is less important than the reason they arrive. That answer only deepened the mystery. Eleanor reached into her coat pocket and removed an old brass key. It was small, worn smooth by countless hands. This belonged to my father, she said. Before he died, he told me I would know exactly who should receive it. She placed the key in Ethan's hand. It isn't yours forever, she added. You're only meant to carry it. What does it open? I've never known. Before Ethan could ask another question, the church doors opened. Morning sunlight poured inside. Several townspeople entered quietly, preparing for Sunday service. None of them seemed surprised to see Eleanor. None of them seemed to notice Ethan at all. Eleanor stood. Our conversation is finished. She walked toward the front of the church, but after only a few steps, she disappeared behind a column. Ethan hurried after her. No one was there. The aisle was empty. There was nowhere she could have gone. Confused, he left the church with the brass key safely in his pocket. Across the road, hidden beneath the windshield wiper of his truck, waited another envelope. He unfolded it immediately. Keep the key with you at all times. Below it, in the same elegant handwriting, appeared a message longer than any before. Tonight, at exactly 11:43, someone will knock on your door. Do not open it. No matter whose voice you hear, no matter how familiar it sounds, do not open the door. The clock on Ethan's living room wall seemed louder than ever. Every second echoed through the cottage as darkness settled over Ashbrook. He placed the brass key on the table, only to remember the latest letter. Keep the key with you at all times. He slipped it back into his pocket. Outside, the wind had disappeared. The trees stood perfectly still beneath a sky filled with stars. Even the crickets had fallen silent. At 11:42 p.m., Ethan turned off every light except the small lamp beside his chair. His eyes never left the front door. The minute hand reached 11:43. 3 soft knocks broke the silence. Knock. 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 Ethan held his breath. No voice came at first. Then, quietly, "Ethan?" His heart skipped. The voice belonged to his younger sister, Claire. It was impossible. Claire lived nearly 1,000 miles away in Colorado. "Ethan, please open the door." The voice sounded frightened. "I've been driving all day." He rose halfway from his chair before stopping himself. "The letter. Do not open it." Another knock followed. This time the voice trembled. "I know you're inside." Tears seemed to fill every word. "I just need your help." Every instinct urged Ethan to unlock the door. Instead, he clenched the brass key in his pocket until it pressed painfully into his hand. Minutes passed. The voice changed. It became lower. Older. His father's voice. His father had died 8 years earlier. "Son," the familiar voice whispered, "you've kept me waiting long enough." Ethan squeezed his eyes shut. The knocking continued. Not louder. Not harder. Just steady. Patient. Finally, as the grandfather clock struck midnight, everything stopped. No knocks. No voices. Only silence. He waited another 10 minutes before gathering the courage to look outside through the window. The porch was empty. Not a footprint marked the thin layer of dust. The next morning, another envelope rested inside the blue mailbox. He opened it with steady hands. "You chose wisely." Beneath those words was something different. A small map. It showed the forest north of Ashbrook, with a winding trail leading to a place marked only by a single circle. At the bottom of the page, one sentence waited. "Take the key. Leave before sunset. Trust the dog." Ethan frowned. There was no dog. Not in the drawing. Not in town. Still, he folded the map and set out that afternoon. As he reached the edge of the forest, a golden retriever emerged quietly from between the trees. The dog didn't bark. It simply looked at Ethan, then turned and began walking along the narrow trail without ever checking to see if he was following. The golden retriever moved at an unhurried pace, its thick coat glowing softly beneath the late afternoon sun. Every few steps it paused, looking back just long enough to make sure Ethan was still behind it. There was no collar. No leash. No sign that it belonged to anyone. Yet it walked with complete confidence, as though it had traveled this trail countless times before. The forest grew quieter the deeper they went. Tall pines blocked much of the sunlight, filling the air with the scent of earth and cedar. A small stream crossed the path, its clear water flowing gently over smooth stones. The dog stepped across without hesitation. After nearly an hour, the trees opened into a small clearing. At its center stood a lone oak tree unlike any Ethan had ever seen. Its trunk was enormous, its branches stretching high into the fading sky. Carved into the bark was a simple symbol. A circle with a single line through its center. The same symbol appeared on the brass key. Ethan's fingers tightened around it. The dog sat quietly beside the tree. It didn't bark. It simply watched. Near the roots, Ethan noticed a small iron keyhole hidden beneath moss. His pulse quickened. He knelt and brushed the moss away before carefully inserting the brass key. It fit perfectly. With a gentle turn, a soft click echoed beneath the ground. Nothing happened. Or so it seemed. A few seconds later, a section of earth beside the tree slowly shifted aside, revealing a narrow stone box buried beneath the roots. Inside lay a weathered leather journal. Its cover was cracked with age, but one name remained clearly embossed in faded gold letters. Ethan Walker. His breath caught. The journal looked decades old. Slowly, he opened the first page. The handwriting matched every mysterious letter he had received. The opening line sent a chill through him. If you are reading this, then every letter arrived exactly when it should have. Before he could read another word, the golden retriever stood. Its ears lifted. It stared into the trees. Someone else was there. A branch snapped in the distance. Then another. Heavy footsteps approached through the forest, slow and deliberate. The dog stepped in front of Ethan, letting out its very first low growl. From between the shadows, a tall figure wearing a dark coat emerged. The stranger stopped several yards away. Without taking another step, he smiled and spoke in a calm voice. "You found the journal." He looked at Ethan for a long moment. Then he added words that made Ethan's blood run cold. "I've been waiting for you. Because I wrote it." The words hung in the cool evening air. "I wrote it." Ethan stared at the stranger, unable to speak. The man looked to be in his early 40s. His dark coat was dusty, as though he had spent days walking through the forest. There was nothing threatening about his face, yet something felt strangely familiar. The golden retriever remained between them, its low growl never fading. The stranger glanced at the dog and smiled. "He's still protecting the journal." "Good. You wrote this?" Ethan finally asked, holding up the leather book. "Yes. But it has my name on it." "I know." "And the letters, you've been sending them?" The man shook his head. "No." Ethan frowned. "Then who has?" The stranger's expression grew serious. "If I answer that now, you'll stop believing what you've seen." He took a careful step forward. The dog did not move. "I don't want the journal," the man said quietly. "Keep it with you. Read only one page each day. Never skip ahead." "Why?" "Because the future is dangerous when you read it too quickly." A cold breeze swept through the clearing. Leaves circled the old oak before settling again. The stranger looked toward the fading sunlight. "You should leave. You still haven't told me who you are." The man hesitated. "My name won't help you." "It might help me understand." He smiled sadly. "It won't." With that, he turned and walked into the trees. Within seconds, the forest swallowed him completely. Ethan ran after him. The path ahead was empty. No footprints. No broken branches. Nothing. Only silence. The golden retriever barked once. When Ethan looked back, the dog was already walking toward the trail home. The sun disappeared below the horizon just as they reached the edge of the forest. Waiting beside Ethan's truck was another envelope. He opened it immediately. "Do not read the journal tonight." Below that, another sentence had been added. "Someone will try to convince you otherwise." Ethan locked the journal inside a kitchen drawer as soon as he returned home. He made dinner, switched on the radio, and tried to think about anything else. At exactly 9 p.m., the telephone rang. The old landline in the cottage had never rung before. He answered cautiously. A calm voice spoke. "Ethan, whatever you do." It was Eleanor. "Open the journal now. Don't wait until morning." The line crackled. Then another voice interrupted. "No. It was Sheriff Brooks. Hang up immediately. Static filled the receiver. The voices overlapped, each insisting they were telling the truth. Then, through the noise, a third voice whispered only 4 words. They're both already gone. The line went dead. The silence after the call felt heavier than the voices themselves. Ethan kept the receiver in his hand for several seconds before slowly placing it back on the cradle. His eyes drifted toward the kitchen drawer. The journal remained inside, unopened. The latest letter had warned him not to read it that night, and every time he had followed the letters, they had protected him. He left the drawer closed. Sleep came only in short, restless moments. At sunrise, the first rays of light spilled through the kitchen window. Ethan poured himself a cup of coffee, unlocked the drawer, and carefully lifted out the journal. The leather felt warmer than before. He opened to the first page. You ignored the voices. Good. His heart raced. The sentence looked as though it had been written only moments earlier, the ink still rich and dark. He continued reading. Today you will discover that not everyone in Ashbrook experiences time the same way. Listen carefully, speak little, and before sunset visit the clockmaker on Willow Street. That was all. The rest of the page was blank. Ethan closed the journal and slipped it into his backpack. Willow Street was quiet, lined with old brick buildings that seemed untouched by the passing decades. At the end of the street stood a tiny shop with a faded wooden sign. Miller Clock Repair. Inside, hundreds of clocks covered the walls. Some ticked loudly. Others had stopped forever. An elderly man wearing round glasses looked up from a workbench. You must be Ethan, he said without surprise. You know my name? The old man smiled. I've repaired your watch. Ethan instinctively looked at his wrist. He wasn't wearing one. I don't own a watch. Not yet. The clockmaker chuckled softly, as though he had made a harmless joke. He reached beneath the counter and placed an old silver pocket watch on the table. Its cover carried the same strange symbol Ethan had seen carved into the oak tree. This belongs to you, the clockmaker said. I've been keeping it safe. Ethan opened the cover. Instead of numbers, the watch displayed only one hand. It wasn't moving. It doesn't tell the time, the old man explained. It tells your time. Before Ethan could ask what that meant, every clock in the shop stopped at once. Hundreds of ticking sounds vanished together. The silence was absolute. Then the pocket watch in Ethan's hand began to move. Its single hand pointed toward the front window. Outside, a man in a dark coat was standing perfectly still across the street. It was the same stranger from the forest. He raised one finger to his lips, signaling for silence. Then he slowly looked up at the sky. A shadow passed overhead. Ethan followed his gaze. For just a heartbeat, he saw an enormous train gliding silently through the clouds. The impossible train drifted across the sky without a sound. Its wheels turned on invisible tracks, disappearing into clouds that glowed with the pale light of morning. Every window reflected the sun, making it impossible to see inside. Then it was gone. The sky returned to normal. Birds resumed singing. A breeze stirred the trees outside the clock shop. Ethan blinked, wondering if he had imagined it. You saw it, the clockmaker said quietly. I did. Good. The old man looked relieved rather than surprised. Most people never do. Ethan turned toward the window again. The stranger in the dark coat had vanished. Only the empty sidewalk remained. The pocket watch suddenly clicked shut by itself. The clockmaker leaned closer. Listen carefully. There are 2 kinds of people in Ashbrook. What do you mean? Those who wait for the letters. He paused. And those who spend their lives trying to stop them. Before Ethan could ask another question, the bell above the shop door rang. A young girl, no older than 10, stepped inside holding a bouquet of wildflowers. She smiled brightly at the clockmaker. "Good morning, Mr. Miller." "Good morning, Lily." She placed the flowers on the counter before turning to Ethan. "You came earlier than last time." Ethan frowned. "I've never met you." Lily tilted her head. "Not yet." She said it so naturally that it barely sounded strange. Then she skipped out of the shop as if nothing unusual had happened. The clockmaker watched her leave. She always remembers tomorrow. Ethan felt another chill. What does that even mean? It means time isn't broken here. The old man looked at the silent clock surrounding them. It simply doesn't flow in one direction. As Ethan stepped outside, the silver pocket watch vibrated gently in his hand. The single hand had moved again. Now it pointed toward the town square. He followed it. Near the center fountain stood Sheriff Brooks. The sheriff looked unusually serious. "I'm glad I found you," he said. "We need to talk." He handed Ethan a faded photograph. It showed 5 people standing in front of the old blue mailbox nearly 30 years earlier. Ethan recognized 4 faces. Sheriff Brooks, Eleanor, Mr. Miller, the stranger in the dark coat. Then Ethan looked at the 5th person. His breath caught. It was himself. Not someone who looked similar. It was unmistakably him. Wearing the same jacket. Holding the same silver pocket watch. The photograph was dated October 14, 1997. The date beneath the photograph refused to make sense. October 14, 1997. Ethan stared at his own face. He hadn't even been born in Ashbrook. In 1997, he had been a young child living hundreds of miles away. Yet the man in the picture wasn't younger. He looked exactly as he did now. "No," Ethan whispered. "This has to be fake." Sheriff Brooks shook his head. "I've kept this photograph locked away for 29 years. You expect me to believe that's me?" "I don't expect you to believe anything," the sheriff replied calmly. "I only expect you to keep listening." He folded the photograph and returned it to Ethan. "Come with me." They walked to a small building behind the town hall. Inside was a room filled with old records, maps, and shelves covered in dusty boxes. The sheriff unlocked a metal cabinet. From it, he removed a thick file labeled simply Walker. Ethan's hands trembled. Inside were newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, sketches of the blue mailbox, and copies of letters written in the same elegant handwriting. One document stood out. It was a list of names. Every name had a date beside it. Most of the names were crossed out. Only one remained untouched. Ethan Walker. "What is this?" Ethan asked. "The keeper's record," Sheriff Brooks answered. "For generations, one person has received the letters. And the others? They completed their journey." "What journey?" The sheriff looked toward the window before answering. "We were never told." Before Ethan could press further, the silver pocket watch in his pocket began ticking loudly. It had never made a sound before. Tick. 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 The sheriff's expression changed instantly. "How fast is it ticking?" "What?" "The watch." "Count." Ethan listened. The ticking became faster. Tick, tick, tick tick, tick tick tick. The sheriff stepped backward. "We're out of time." "For what?" Before he could answer, every light in the room flickered. The air suddenly felt colder. The old papers on the shelves began fluttering even though every window was closed. Then came a familiar sound. A distant train whistle. Not outside. Inside the building. It echoed through the walls as though the tracks ran beneath the floor. The sheriff closed his eyes. "It's here early." The whistle grew louder. A bright white light appeared beneath the office door, spilling into the room like morning sunlight. The pocket watch stopped ticking. Complete silence followed. Then 3 slow knocks sounded on the door. Knock. 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 Neither Ethan nor the sheriff moved. A calm voice came from the hallway. Ethan. It was the stranger from the forest. I think you've waited long enough. The sheriff whispered without taking his eyes off the door. If you open it now, everything you've learned so far will change. Ethan's hand hovered inches from the doorknob. The stranger's voice was calm, patient, almost reassuring. I won't force you, he said through the closed door. But if you leave with the sheriff, you'll spend the rest of your life following instructions written by someone you've never met. Sheriff Brooks answered without raising his voice. And if you open that door, you'll begin asking questions that have no safe answers. The room fell silent. Ethan looked down at the silver pocket watch. Its single hand had stopped pointing toward the door. Instead, it slowly turned until it pointed at the window. Without thinking, Ethan walked past both men and looked outside. The town square was frozen. A bird hung motionless in the air. Leaves stood still above the street. A bicycle leaned in the middle of the road, perfectly balanced without falling. Time itself had stopped. Only Ethan, the sheriff, and the voice beyond the door seemed untouched. Then another sound broke the silence. A soft scraping came from the cabinet holding the old files. The drawer marked Walker slid open by itself. Inside, beneath the stack of documents, rested one final envelope. Ethan had never seen it before. He picked it up carefully. The handwriting was the same. Open the door. He looked up in disbelief. Every previous letter had guided him safely. This one gave the opposite advice. Sheriff Brooks stared at the envelope, his face draining of color. I was afraid this day would come. You've seen this before? Ethan asked. No. Then why are you afraid? Because the letters have never changed their mind. For the first time, the sheriff sounded uncertain. Ethan took a slow breath. He reached for the doorknob. The stranger outside said nothing. The sheriff said nothing. The latch clicked. Ethan pulled the door open. The hallway was empty. No stranger. No light. No footsteps. Only a long corridor leading toward the building's exit. Then he noticed something resting on the floor. A conductor's cap. Dark blue. Perfectly clean. Inside the cap was a small folded card. He opened it. Platform 1. Nothing more. The moment he finished reading, the world lurched. Outside the window, the bird completed its flight. Leaves drifted gently to the ground. The bicycle crashed onto the pavement. Time had begun moving again. A distant train whistle echoed across Ashbrook. Sheriff Brooks slowly removed his hat. So, he said quietly, it finally wants you to board. The whistle lingered in the distance long after the town had returned to normal. Ethan held the conductor's cap in one hand and the small card in the other. Platform 1. Ashbrook hadn't had a working train station in nearly 30 years. Where is Platform 1? Ethan asked. Sheriff Brooks didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the window and watched the people outside continue with their day, unaware that time had stopped only moments before. Most people think the station had only 2 platforms, he finally said. They were wrong. He turned to Ethan. Platform 1 isn't on any map. Then how do I find it? You don't. The sheriff's voice grew quieter. It finds you. As if summoned by those words, the silver pocket watch in Ethan's pocket began ticking again. Slowly. Steadily. Tick. 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 Its single hand spun once, then stopped, pointing toward the old train station. Without another word, Ethan left the records room. The sheriff followed. Neither of them spoke during the walk. The station looked exactly as it had before, cracked walls, broken windows, rusted rails disappearing into the distance. But something was different. A narrow staircase that hadn't been there before now descended beneath the station. At its entrance stood Eleanor. She smiled as Ethan approached. "I wondered how long it would take." "You knew this would happen?" "I've known since before you arrived." She stepped aside, revealing an old lantern burning with a warm golden flame. "Take it." Ethan lifted the lantern. Its light was brighter than it should have been. The shadows around it seemed to retreat farther than ordinary light could reach. "Follow the stairs," Eleanor said. "But remember one thing." She looked directly into his eyes. "If you hear the train before you see the tracks, close your eyes." Ethan nodded. He began descending. The staircase spiraled deep beneath the station. The air grew cooler with every step. After what felt like several minutes, the stairs ended in a long stone tunnel. There were no tracks. No platform. Only darkness stretching ahead. Then he heard it. The unmistakable rhythm of steel wheels rolling over rails. Closer. Closer. Yet the tunnel remained empty. Eleanor's warning flashed through his mind. Without hesitation, Ethan closed his eyes. The sound grew deafening. A rush of wind swept past him, carrying the scent of rain, coal smoke, and old paper. The ground trembled beneath his feet. It lasted only seconds. When the noise finally faded, Ethan opened his eyes. The tunnel had vanished. He was standing on a beautifully restored railway platform beneath a ceiling of glowing glass. A polished black train waited silently beside him. Above its first carriage hung a brass sign. It read only 3 words. "Next stop, yesterday." The station was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Its marble floors reflected the warm glow of hanging lamps. The air carried the faint scent of polished wood and fresh rain, though the sky above the glass ceiling was perfectly clear. Travelers stood quietly along the platform, dressed in clothes from different decades. Some wore modern jackets, others old-fashioned suits and hats. No one spoke. No one seemed impatient. They simply waited. The polished black train stood with its doors open, releasing soft curls of white steam that disappeared before touching the ground. A conductor stepped onto the platform. He wore a dark blue uniform. The same conductor's cap Ethan now held in his hands. The man smiled politely. "Mr. Walker. You know me? We've been expecting you." The conductor extended his hand. "Your ticket." "I don't have one." "You do." Confused, Ethan reached into his jacket pocket. His fingers touched an envelope. He was certain it hadn't been there before. He opened it. Inside rested a single ivory ticket. Across its center, elegant black letters read, "One passage. No return." Ethan looked up. "What does that mean?" The conductor answered gently. "It means every passenger changes after this journey." He punched the ticket with a small brass tool and returned half of it. "Keep this safe." Ethan stepped toward the train but hesitated at the doorway. "Where exactly am I going?" The conductor glanced at the station clock. Its hand spun backward. "Not where." He smiled. "When?" Ethan climbed aboard. The carriage was almost empty. An elderly woman quietly knitted beside a window. A teenage boy read a newspaper dated 20 years in the future. Near the end of the carriage sat the stranger from the forest. He motioned for Ethan to join him. "You made the right choice," the stranger said. "I still don't know who you are." "You will." The train gave a gentle lurch. Outside the window, the station slowly faded into mist. Fields, mountains, cities, and oceans flashed past in seconds. The speed was impossible. Yet inside the carriage, not even a cup of tea trembled. The stranger reached into his coat and placed an old photograph on the table between them. It showed two men standing beside the blue mailbox. One was Ethan. The other was the stranger. Both were smiling. On the back of the photograph, written in the same elegant handwriting as every mysterious letter, were 6 simple words. Brothers always find each other again. Ethan looked up in disbelief. My parents never had another son. The stranger's eyes softened. They didn't. He paused. Then, as the train disappeared into a tunnel of brilliant white light, he quietly said, You and I were born 30 years apart. The words settled between them like a stone dropped into still water. We were born 30 years apart. Ethan searched the stranger's face again. The resemblance was impossible to ignore now. The shape of his eyes, the faint scar above his left eyebrow, even the way he folded his hands, they were unsettlingly familiar. My name is Adrian, the stranger said. It's time you knew that much. You said we're brothers. We are. How? Adrian looked out the window, where flashes of different seasons rushed past in seconds. Snow became spring, spring became autumn, and then the trees were green again. Some families inherit land, Adrian said softly. Ours inherited a promise. Ethan waited. Every 30 years, Adrian continued, one child is chosen to guard the path between ordinary time and the railway. The railway? Adrian nodded. The letters don't choose people. They remind them who they already are. Before Ethan could ask another question, the train began to slow. The conductor's voice echoed through the carriage. Next stop. He paused. Ashbrook. October 14, 1997. Ethan's heart pounded. The train doors opened. Outside stood the familiar station, but everything was different. The paint was fresh. The platform bustled with families. Children laughed as they chased one another beneath bright autumn trees. Nothing was abandoned. Everything was alive. Ethan stepped onto the platform. The cool air smelled of wood smoke and fresh bread. This is really 1997, he whispered. Adrian smiled. As real as your own memories. They walked through the town together. The streets looked newer, but the buildings were unmistakably Ashbrook. When they reached Cedar Lane, Ethan stopped. Across the road stood the white cottage. And beside it, the blue mailbox. Its paint was bright and untouched by rust. A young man walked out of the cottage carrying a small child in his arms. The child couldn't have been older than 4. The boy laughed as the man pointed toward the mailbox. Ethan felt a strange ache in his chest. Who are they? Adrian answered quietly. Your father. Ethan's eyes filled with disbelief. And you. The little boy wriggled free, ran toward the mailbox, and reached inside. Instead of a letter, he pulled out a smooth white stone. He held it up proudly. His father laughed. Not today, he said. Maybe when you're older. Ethan stared, speechless. His younger self turned toward the road for just a moment. Their eyes met. The little boy smiled. As though he had recognized someone he had been waiting to meet. The little boy's smile lingered long after Ethan looked away. It can't be, Ethan whispered. If that's really me, why can he see me? Adrian didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched the child place the white stone carefully back into the mailbox. Children notice things adults learn to ignore, he said at last. Especially here. The boy suddenly waved. Not at the road. Not at the trees. At Ethan. His father looked in the same direction but frowned, seeing nothing. Who are you waving at? He asked. The child grinned. The man who's going to be sad. Ethan's breath caught. His father chuckled, assuming it was childish imagination, and gently led the boy back toward the cottage. The front door closed. The street fell quiet. Adrian turned to Ethan. Come. They walked deeper into the town until they reached the old church on the hill. It looked new, its stone walls untouched by age. Inside, a young Eleanor arranged flowers near the altar. She looked up as they entered. Without the slightest surprise, she smiled. "So you finally came." Ethan stared. "You can see me? I've been expecting you for 29 years. She reached beneath the altar and placed a small wooden box in Ethan's hands. "Don't open it here." "What's inside?" "A memory." Before he could ask another question, the church bell rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. The sound echoed through the town. Adrian's expression changed. "We have to leave." "Why?" "Because someone else knows we're here." Outside, the bright afternoon sky slowly darkened. Not with clouds. With shadows. People stopped walking. They looked upward in silence. A distant train whistle echoed across Ashbrook. This one sounded different. Lower. Colder. The cheerful black train Ethan had boarded was nowhere to be seen. Instead, another train rolled slowly into the station. Its engine was black as midnight. Its windows reflected nothing. No passengers could be seen inside. Even the steam rising from it looked like drifting smoke. Adrian stepped back. His calm expression disappeared for the first time. "No." "What is it?" "That train should never have found us." The doors opened by themselves. A tall figure in a long black coat stepped onto the platform. His face remained hidden beneath the brim of his hat. Yet when he spoke, his voice matched the elegant handwriting of every letter Ethan had ever received. "Mr. Walker," the figure said. "You followed my instructions perfectly." He lifted his head just enough for Ethan to see a faint smile. "But now, it's time for you to learn who has been writing to you all along." The station fell silent. Even the wind seemed to disappear. The figure in the black coat stood motionless beside the dark train, his gloved hands resting on the handle of a polished walking cane. Ethan took one cautious step forward. "You've been sending the letters?" The man smiled. "Yes." "Who are you?" Instead of answering, the stranger removed a small envelope from his coat. It looked exactly like every letter Ethan had received. He held it out. "For you." Ethan hesitated, then accepted it. The envelope was already sealed with dark blue wax. He broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Only 5 words were written on it. "Turn around before you answer." Without thinking, Ethan obeyed. Behind him stood Adrian. But something was wrong. His face had gone pale. He wasn't looking at Ethan. He was staring at the man in the black coat with unmistakable fear. "You." Adrian whispered. "I hoped we'd never meet again." The stranger gave a slow nod. Hope has never changed the timetable. Ethan looked from one man to the other. "You know each other?" "We've met," Adrian replied quietly. "Many times." "How is that possible?" "Because every journey leaves another crossing." The answer made little sense. The stranger tapped his cane gently against the platform. A clear metallic sound echoed through the station. Suddenly, the world around them shifted. Passengers froze in place. Steam stopped rising from the train. Even the drifting smoke became perfectly still. Only the 3 of them could move. The stranger looked directly at Ethan. "My name is Jonathan Walker." Ethan frowned. "Walker?" "Yes." "We're related?" Jonathan's smile carried both warmth and sadness. "I am the first Walker." "The first?" "The one who made the promise." Ethan's mind raced. "You said our family inherited it." Jonathan nodded. "Long before your father was born. Long before Ashbrook became a town. I made a choice that allowed time to bend here." He glanced toward the silent train. It saved many lives. But every gift asks for a price. Ethan's voice grew quiet. What price? Jonathan looked into Ethan's eyes. One member of our family must guide the railway in every generation. The word settled heavily between them. Adrian lowered his head. I've been doing it for 30 years. Jonathan nodded. And your time is ending. He turned back to Ethan. The letters weren't sent to test you. They were sent to prepare you. The black train gave a single low whistle. Its doors slowly opened wider. Jonathan extended his hand toward Ethan. Come. It's time to decide whether the railway will have another guardian. Or whether it ends with you. The open doorway of the black train seemed darker than the night itself. No light escaped from inside. No sound came from within. It was as if the train were waiting, patiently, for only one passenger. Ethan looked at Adrian. You knew this was coming. Adrian nodded. I've known since I received my first letter. You've been the guardian all these years? Yes. What does a guardian actually do? Adrian took a slow breath. I don't control time. I protect the people who accidentally wander into it. He glanced toward Jonathan. The railway connects moments that should never touch. If no one watches over it, yesterday and tomorrow begin to collide. Jonathan quietly added, and when that happens, entire lives disappear. Ethan's thoughts raced. So every letter saved someone? Jonathan smiled. Not just someone. He looked directly at Ethan. You. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? The bridge you avoided. The church. The forest. The train station. Each choice kept you on the only path that still leads here. A chill ran through Ethan. What if I had ignored the first letter? Jonathan's expression became solemn. You never would have reached this day. Silence settled over the platform. Then the silver pocket watch began ticking again. Faster than ever. Tick. Tick tick. Tick tick tick. The single hand spun wildly before stopping at midnight. A crack of brilliant white light appeared across the station floor. It stretched from one end of the platform to the other. Beyond it, Ethan could see impossible scenes. A child laughing. An old man crying. A wedding. A funeral. A city being built. A house burning down. Hundreds of moments from countless lives, all unfolding at once. They're crossing, Adrian whispered. They've never crossed this badly. Jonathan tightened his grip on his cane. The railway is weakening. The station shook violently. Glass shattered high above them. The dark train let out a long, mournful whistle. Passengers on the distant platform began fading like mist. Ethan felt the brass key in his pocket grow warm. Then unbearably hot. He pulled it out. The key had changed. Its smooth surface now carried tiny engraved words. Only one door can remain open. Jonathan looked at the key with quiet recognition. It has chosen. The key doesn't open a lock, Ethan said. Jonathan nodded. It opens a decision. Before anyone could speak again, the station clock struck midnight. Once. Twice. 3 times. Every bell echoed together. The dark train slowly began moving. Even though no one had stepped aboard. And as it rolled past Ethan, he looked through one of its windows. Sitting alone inside was an older version of himself. The old Ethan looked directly at him and silently mouthed 3 words. Don't choose fear. The older Ethan vanished as the train disappeared into the darkness beyond the platform. For a long moment, no one spoke. Ethan could still see those 3 silent words in his mind. Don't choose fear. He turned to Jonathan. Was that really me? Jonathan nodded once. It was one of the many futures that still exists. One of them? There is no single future until a choice is made. The station trembled again. A long crack spread across the marble floor, glowing with pale blue light. Through it, Ethan caught glimpses of places that shouldn't exist together. Snow fell onto a summer field. Children played beneath a sky filled with northern lights. An old lighthouse stood in the middle of a desert. Time was unraveling. Adrian looked exhausted. His shoulders sagged as though he had been carrying an invisible weight for years. "I can't hold it much longer," he admitted. Jonathan placed a hand on Adrian's shoulder. "You've carried the railway with honor." Adrian smiled faintly. "I was never afraid of the railway." He looked at Ethan. "I was only afraid you'd have to inherit it." Ethan's grip tightened around the brass key. "There has to be another way." Jonathan's expression softened. "There always is." Hope flickered inside Ethan. "What is it?" Jonathan raised his cane and pointed toward the glowing crack. "The promise that created the railway was made willingly." He lowered the cane. "So it can only end willingly." "You mean?" "Someone must choose to close the path forever." Ethan glanced toward the magnificent black train. "If I close it?" Jonathan answered before he finished. "Every strange journey ends." "The letters?" "They stop." "The train?" "It disappears." "And everyone I've met?" Jonathan was silent. Ethan understood. The clockmaker. Eleanor. Adrian. Even Jonathan himself. Their lives were tied to the railway. Without it, they would become only memories. A deep whistle echoed across the station. The silver pocket watch suddenly opened on its own. Instead of a single hand, it now displayed two. One pointed toward the black train. The other pointed toward a weathered wooden door standing alone at the far end of the platform. The brass key grew warm again. Jonathan looked at the door. "It wasn't there a moment ago." Adrian whispered. "It never appears unless a guardian is free to choose." The station shook harder than ever. Chunks of glass rained from the ceiling. The glowing crack widened until it reached Ethan's feet. He looked from the waiting train to the lonely wooden door, knowing that whichever path he chose, there would be no second chance. Ethan stood perfectly still. The station around him was falling apart, yet everything inside him became strangely calm. In his right hand, he held the brass key. In his left, the silver pocket watch. The train waited. The wooden door waited. Neither seemed to demand an answer. They simply waited. Jonathan stepped closer. "The train is the path of duty." He pointed toward the weathered door. "The door is the path of ending." Ethan looked at Adrian. "What would you choose?" Adrian smiled sadly. "What I choose doesn't matter anymore." "It does to me." Adrian's eyes drifted toward the black train. "For 30 years, I believed protecting the railway was the greatest gift I could give the world." He paused. "Then I realized something. The greatest gift isn't preserving every miracle. It's allowing ordinary life to remain ordinary." Those words settled deep inside Ethan. Before he could respond, the platform shook so violently that the station clock crashed onto the marble floor. The glass shattered. Inside the broken clock was another envelope. Jonathan stared at it in disbelief. "I've never seen one hidden there." Ethan picked it up. It felt heavier than the others. On the front, instead of his name, were 3 words. "For whoever chooses." He opened it carefully. Inside was the longest letter he had ever received. "Every guardian believes the railway belongs to time. It does not. It belongs to hope. Hope is not found in endless chances. Hope is found in choosing well, even when there is no second chance. If you board the train, the railway will continue. If you open the door, the railway will end. Neither choice is right. Neither choice is wrong. Only one question matters. The final line stood alone at the bottom of the page. What kind of future do you believe people deserve? Ethan slowly lowered the letter. The station had almost disappeared. Walls faded into mist. The ceiling became a sky filled with stars. Only the train. The wooden door. Jonathan. Adrian. And Ethan remained. Jonathan looked at him with quiet pride. For the first time. The letters cannot tell you what to do. The brass key suddenly split into two identical keys. One fell into Ethan's left hand. The other into Adrian's. Adrian looked at the duplicate key, confused. Jonathan's eyes widened. Impossible. What is it? Ethan asked. Jonathan smiled for the first time without sadness. The railway has changed its own rules. He looked at both brothers. For centuries there could only be one guardian. He took a slow breath. But now, it has chosen to trust too. The two brass keys gleamed beneath the fading starlight. For several seconds, no one moved. Adrian turned his key over in his hand, studying the symbol engraved on its surface. It was no longer the simple circle Ethan had seen before. Now it showed two circles joined by a single line. Jonathan smiled quietly. I've never seen that mark. What does it mean? Ethan asked. Jonathan looked from one brother to the other. It means the burden no longer belongs to one person alone. The station stopped shaking. The widening cracks across the marble floor slowed, as if the railway itself had paused to watch what would happen next. Adrian looked at Ethan. Do you know why I never wanted you here? Ethan shook his head. Because I spent 30 years believing the only way to protect someone you love is to carry every burden yourself. He smiled faintly. I was wrong. Ethan stepped closer. So what happens now? Jonathan raised his cane. The choice has changed. The railway no longer asks whether it should live or die. It asks whether it can be guided differently. Before Ethan could answer, the black train gave another long whistle. This time, one of its doors opened wider than the others. Inside stood a small boy. He couldn't have been older than 8. He wore a blue sweater and held a folded paper airplane. He looked frightened. Help me, he whispered. Ethan immediately recognized him. It was the child he had seen years earlier beside the blue mailbox. His younger self. No. Ethan breathed. The boy took one hesitant step toward the doorway but stopped. Behind him, shadows slowly filled the carriage. Jonathan's expression became serious. The crossing has begun. What crossing? Moments that were never meant to meet. Adrian gripped his key. If that child stays on the train, your past may never return. Without thinking, Ethan ran toward the open carriage. The moment his foot touched the first step, the silver pocket watch shattered in his pocket. Hundreds of tiny gears scattered across the platform. Time froze again. The frightened boy looked directly at Ethan. Then he smiled. Not with fear. With recognition. I knew you'd come, the child said. He unfolded the paper airplane and placed it into Ethan's hand. Written across one wing, in the same elegant handwriting that had guided him from the beginning, were 7 final words before the mystery deepened once again. The first letter was never the beginning. The paper airplane felt impossibly light in Ethan's hand. Its edges were worn, as though it had been folded and unfolded hundreds of times. He carefully opened it. Inside, there was no message. Only a simple drawing. A blue mailbox. A small white stone. And beneath them, a date. October 3, 1968. Ethan frowned. Jonathan, what happened on this day? Jonathan didn't answer. Instead, he closed his eyes. For the first time since they had met, he looked afraid. Adrian noticed. You've never told him, have you? Jonathan opened his eyes slowly. No. You promised. I know. Ethan stepped closer. What happened in 1968? Jonathan looked toward the frozen passengers standing motionless along the platform. When I was a young man, he began quietly, Ashbrook wasn't the peaceful town you know. It was drowning. In what? Floodwater. He pointed into the distance. A new scene slowly appeared beyond the platform. The town lay beneath heavy rain. The river had burst its banks. Homes floated away. Families shouted for help. Church bells rang desperately through the storm. I had one choice, Jonathan continued. I could save the people. Or save time. I chose the people. The scene shifted. Jonathan placed a small white stone into the blue mailbox. The railway answered. It offered me another chance. One chance? Jonathan nodded. It turned one terrible day into many possible days. Ethan finally understood. The railway was never created to control time. It was created to give hope. Jonathan smiled sadly. Exactly. But every borrowed tomorrow had to be guarded. The station lights flickered. The frozen passengers began moving again. Not all at once. One by one. As though someone had slowly pressed play. The little boy looked at Ethan. I have something else. He reached into his sweater pocket and removed a tiny brass compass. Instead of pointing north, its needle pointed toward Ethan. It belongs to you. The moment Ethan accepted it, the compass spun wildly. The paper airplane slipped from his hand and floated upward instead of falling. It circled the carriage once before landing gently on an empty seat. Words slowly appeared across its paper. Not written. Appearing. The writer of the letters never posted a single one. Jonathan stared at the sentence. So. He whispered. It finally wants you to know. Ethan looked from Jonathan to Adrian. If no one mailed the letters, then how did they always arrive? No one answered. Because, somewhere beyond the platform, hidden within the growing sound of distant rails, someone had just begun writing the very first letter. The scratching of a pen echoed through the station. It was a quiet sound, almost gentle, yet every person on the platform heard it. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. The sound didn't come from the train. It didn't come from the station. It seemed to come from time itself. Ethan held the brass compass tightly. Its needle no longer pointed at him. Now it pointed beyond the end of the platform, where a narrow hallway had appeared between two columns. There had been no hallway a moment ago. Jonathan looked toward it and whispered. It wasn't supposed to open. Adrian's expression darkened. No one has ever walked that way. What's there? Ethan asked. Jonathan answered with unusual honesty. I don't know. For the first time, the oldest guardian admitted there was something beyond his knowledge. The scratching of the pen continued. Ethan stepped into the hallway. The walls were lined with thousands of small wooden drawers, each no larger than a mailbox. Every drawer carried a date instead of a name. Some were centuries old. Others had dates far in the future. As Ethan walked deeper inside, he noticed something impossible. Many drawers were slightly open. Inside each rested a single sealed envelope. None had stamps. None had addresses. Yet every one was waiting to be delivered. At the end of the hallway stood an old oak desk beneath a single hanging lamp. A fountain pen rested on its surface. Beside it lay a blank sheet of paper. The chair behind the desk was empty. The scratching sound stopped. Ethan approached slowly. The moment his fingers touched the pen, ink began flowing across the blank page on its own. Elegant black letters appeared one by one. Dear Ethan. He watched in stunned silence. The next line formed. If you are reading this, then you have reached the place where every letter begins. A cold shiver ran through him. The words continued. No one ever carried these letters. They were written only after they had already been read. Ethan felt the room spin. Jonathan stepped beside him. That's impossible. The page ignored him. More words appeared. The future remembered the past and sent it back. Adrian slowly removed his key from his pocket. So the letters were never messages. They were memories. The pen wrote one final sentence before becoming still. There is only one letter left to write. At that exact moment, the blank envelope lying beside the paper turned over by itself. Across its front, in fresh black ink, a familiar name slowly appeared. For Ethan Walker. But this time, the handwriting wasn't Jonathan's. It wasn't Adrian's. It was Ethan's own. Ethan stared at the envelope bearing his own handwriting. Every curve of every letter was unmistakable. He had never written it. And yet he knew, with unsettling certainty, that one day he would. The station around them had become perfectly quiet. Even the distant trains had fallen silent, as if the railway itself was waiting. Jonathan slowly removed his gloves. I wondered if I'd live long enough to see this. What does it mean? Ethan asked. Jonathan smiled. It means the railway has finally found its true keeper. Adrian looked at the envelope but made no move to touch it. It isn't ours to open. Ethan picked it up. The paper felt warm, like it had just come from beneath someone's hand. He broke the seal. Inside was only one sheet. The message was longer than any of the others. Ethan, if you're reading this, then you've discovered the secret I spent my entire life protecting. I am not writing to change the future. I am writing because the future has already changed me. Every letter you received was written by the man you chose to become. You never had to believe the letters. You only had to become the person willing to write them. Ethan's breathing slowed. The words continued appearing before his eyes. One day, someone will stand where you once stood. They will be frightened. They will think they are alone. Write to them. Not to control their choices. Only to help them reach the moment when they can choose for themselves. The final paragraph appeared more slowly than the rest. The railway was never built to preserve time. It exists to preserve courage. Every generation receives only enough guidance to take the next step. Nothing more. When the final sentence finished, the ink faded until the page became completely blank. As though the letter had never existed. The desk trembled. Thousands of wooden drawers lining the endless hallway clicked open together. Inside each one, an envelope dissolved into tiny points of light. They rose through the air like glowing fireflies before disappearing into the darkness above. Jonathan watched in silence. Then he whispered. The letters have all been delivered. The station lights brightened. Beyond the hallway, a new sunrise spread across the sky. The black train gave one final whistle. Its doors closed gently. Instead of pulling away, it slowly disappeared, leaving only empty tracks stretching toward the horizon. Adrian smiled for the first time without sadness. The journey isn't ending, he said quietly. It's finally becoming someone else's beginning. The first morning after the train disappeared felt wonderfully ordinary. Sunlight spilled across Cedar Lane. Children rode their bicycles to school. The bakery filled the air with the smell of warm bread. For the first time since Ethan had arrived in Ashbrook, the silence no longer felt mysterious. It felt peaceful. The blue mailbox still stood at the end of the road. Its faded paint had returned, weathered by time once more, as though it had always belonged there. Ethan crossed the street with no expectation of finding another letter. He opened the little metal door. It was empty. He smiled. Weeks passed. Life settled into a gentle rhythm. The clockmaker repaired watches. Sheriff Brooks spent his afternoons greeting neighbors. Eleanor tended the flowers outside the church. No one spoke about the railway. No one needed to. One crisp autumn evening, Ethan climbed the hill overlooking the valley. Ashbrook glowed beneath the setting sun. He reached into his pocket and found the small brass compass. Its needle no longer spun. It pointed steadily toward home. He laughed softly. I suppose that's enough. As he turned to leave, he noticed a young woman standing beside the old oak tree. She looked lost. She held a folded road map and glanced around uncertainly. When she saw Ethan, relief crossed her face. Excuse me, she called. I think I've taken a wrong turn. Ethan smiled. That depends. She laughed. On what? On where you're trying to go. She looked down at the map. I'm not really sure anymore. For just a moment, Ethan noticed something tucked beneath the edge of the map. A small white stone. His smile faded into quiet understanding. He didn't ask where she had found it. Instead, he walked with her toward the town. As they reached Cedar Lane, the evening breeze gently opened the door of the old blue mailbox. Inside, there was nothing. Exactly as there should be. Ethan looked up at the golden sky. The future no longer needed to send letters backward. People would still become lost. They would still face impossible choices. They would still wonder whether they were alone. But courage had never truly come from the envelopes. It had come from the hearts of those willing to keep walking, even without knowing what waited beyond the next step. The mailbox door slowly closed. A robin landed on top of it and sang into the quiet evening. Ethan smiled, slipped the brass compass into his pocket, and continued down the road beside the traveler. Neither of them looked back. And somewhere, in a future that no longer needed to rewrite the past, an ordinary life unfolded, filled with laughter, loss, friendship, hope, and countless small choices that required no mysterious letters at all. Because the greatest journeys are not the ones that escape time. They are the ones that teach us how to live fully within it. The end.